to school is right around the corner, and typically this time of the year I would be customizing and personalizing all of my kids' school supplies. And if you have more than one child in school, you know what that's like with all the supplies. But this year we have decided to pick up on our homeschool journey once again. As we took a few years of a break there, we now will have the kids home this year, and our school supply list looks a lot different. So instead of customizing all the things, we are going to take a look at a few specific items that we can make fun for the kids, just to kind of personalize their workspace at home, which when you homeschool, everyone does it different, and there's always lots of different ways of doing this. But we are going to first head over to the Dollar Tree and find some of this really cool peel and stick wallpaper, and we are going to deck out some of their more specific items that I thought would just be fun for getting their school year started. And that is what we are going to start with today. So if you haven't seen this stuff at the Dollar Tree yet, I highly recommend you head over there and see what they all have, because they also have some really cool wall stickers. Now, to get started, I am first going to be taking some chalk paint that I have here. This is Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to water it down a little bit just to thin it out, and then I'm going to be painting a few items. This crate from the Dollar Tree and this wooden box from Hobby Lobby. And they have all different styles and sizes at Hobby Lobby, so I like to go there often and see what they have available. But with this paint, I wanted it to be a little bit thinner, so I am going to take a little bit of water and just thin this out some. Now, I could add a lot of water and make it more like a whitewash, but I left it so that it would still cover fully on these wood boxes, but you could definitely thin it out a lot more to give it more of a water whitewash look to it. Now that the paint is ready, I am going to just cover the outside and the inside of this crate, and then I will do the entire outside of the little jewelry box type thing. And you guys, I am using a makeup brush. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever even thought about using these makeup brushes. You can get Wet n Wild makeup brushes from the Dollar Tree. I am not sure where I grabbed this one. I think the Dollar Tree as well. But these just give you really great coverage. And I had first started using this type of brush for painting when I started making custom tumblers. Not the kind that you sublimate, which I also do, but ones that you paint and glitter and you do all the things too. But these brushes are amazing for getting some really good smooth coverage. So if you haven't tried it yet, I encourage you to go grab a few of these makeup brushes from the Dollar Tree and then test it out and let me know what you think. Is it just me, or do other people find that these are actually really good for painting with? But I'm going to just continue on with covering all of these things here. Now I'm going to put these aside so that they can dry, which is why I started painting these first. I will be using these a little bit later on two different projects that we're doing here today. So make sure you stick around so you can see what these will end up being a part of as we go along here. Now, if you are also a homeschooling mom like I am, like I said, we did it a few years ago and really enjoyed it, but due to other circumstances, we decided to take a little break for a bit, and now we are ready to jump back on in, and the kids are actually really excited, which after being at school for a few years, I wasn't sure they would be willing to walk away from that with being with their friends all day, but they're actually really, really excited. How many kids do you have, and how long have you been homeschooling? I am just really curious because I know a lot of families who have like 1 or 2 kids, and then I know some families that have like 8. So We have two daughters, and they are just a lot of fun and very curious, which is great. But what is your style of homeschooling? There is always a big debate out there because there's so many different ways you can homeschool. Do you prefer to have like a classroom setup at home? Are you more of an interest led by the kids type of homeschooling style? What curriculums do you like to use? I know I'm full of questions, but I am just really curious because I get different answers from everyone that I talk to. And it's just very interesting to me that you can do so many different things when you homeschool and really gear it towards your kids because they do all really learn a whole lot different. And my two kids are no exception to that. They are complete opposites. So anyways, I will get off of that subject for right now as I finish up my painting here. But if you have not been here before, welcome. My name is Sarah. I am glad you are here to check out what we are up to today. I try to get out a new tutorial every week, so go ahead and hit that subscribe and notification bell buttons so that you don't miss out on anything. But again, like I said, I have kids, so sometimes it doesn't get done every week, but that's just the way things go. So I'm going to speed this up now just to get through this because the painting process here could take quite a while and this video would be very long. So now grabbing some of the wallpaper from the Dollar Tree, I decided to use this fun patterned one and some of these other different styles that they had there, and grabbing a few of these wall stickers as well. We are going to put together our first project. Now with some of these, they do have like the seamless pattern on the edges. You just have to turn them and make sure you have them the right way so they line up. So just keep turning your wallpaper until it fits the right way. Now I'm grabbing a board here that I had a bunch of these cut out. I was going to make a bunch of trays, so I have a lot of these lying around, and I thought I would take this board, which is about 2 feet long. No, it's like 1.5 feet long and about 1 foot high. And I'm going to take this wallpaper and cover the board. Now, what we are making is kind of like a command center board that I can hang on the wall between their desks, and it will be filled with their pens, and well, we'll see as we add things to this board. Now for the wallpaper, I wanted that seam kind of in the middle, so I'm lining it up the best that I can, and then I'm going to flip this all over so that I can piece this all together. Now this wallpaper is pretty sticky, and it didn't really seem like it would have a problem hanging onto this wood, but if you would feel better about gluing it down just for that extra hold, you can absolutely do that. But here I am just going to go ahead and stick that wallpaper right on to the wood. So lining these up the best that I can, even though I can't really see the other side, I'm just trusting that it's all going to line up right. And taking the board, I'm just going to place it over the top of the wallpaper here on the backing so that I can line it up the best that I can, trying to keep this in the middle. And then I'm going to trace around here so that I know where to cut. Now, I could just take an X-Acto knife and cut straight on this wallpaper instead of doing the lines, but this is the way I chose to do it, just so that I didn't accidentally slice the wood or anything. And then I'm going to cut these pieces out and then flip everything over and get ready to place it down on top of that wood. Now that these pieces are cut out, I'm going to flip them over and line up the parts where that seamless pattern is. And as you can see, like I said before, you just keep turning it. If it was lined up properly when you traced your lines, it should line up. When you're finished, just keep moving them around till you find the matching parts. It's kind of like a puzzle. Then I'm going to take my board and we are going to lay these pieces out and just make sure that they were cut properly. And then we are going to go ahead and peel off the backing and start to place these down on the wood. Now there is a little bit of overhang on the top and the bottoms, but that's okay. We will take care of that later. I don't want to cut this down too much that it doesn't cover the entire board. Now they do have places on the back here where you can easily peel the backing off for easy application. But of course I have some really short fingernails right now, so it was a little difficult for me to find my edges here to grab. Then starting on one side, I am going to try to line this up the best that I can on the board and then slowly remove the backing as I place it down. Now this is a little bit forgiving that if you do make a mistake and it doesn't quite line up or you didn't place it down the right way the first time, you can peel it up and redo it again. But like I said, if you want to use glue on the back of here, then that might be a little more difficult. Grabbing my scraper tool or my burnisher, I'm going to start to peel up the other part of this backing, and then I'm going to slowly work my way across the board. So on one side, I'm using my scraper to push it down so that it's flat without like bubbles or creasing. And with the other, I am slowly pulling that backing off of the wallpaper. And that way I just know it's all gonna lay flat and hopefully I don't have to redo it. Then I'm going to line up the other side and repeat that same process. So now that I have both pieces on the board, I am just taking my scraper tool and I'm rubbing it down the best that I can, really getting a good solid adhesion to this board. And then as you can see, I am just kind of running my hands around the edges here. Now I am going to take a sanding block and I'm going to shave off some of those edges where the wallpaper is hanging over the edge. Now just be careful that you don't get underneath the wallpaper, that you start to peel it up from that board when you are sanding it. Now you can absolutely just leave it and press it down around the edges, but I wanted to try to see if this would work with the sandpaper, and it worked just fine. There were some parts where I really had to be careful not to peel up that paper. And again, if you're gluing this, you could just let it sit and dry and then try to peel it or sandpaper off the edges. You could also go back with like your X-Acto knife and shave off some of those parts if you want. It's totally up to you how you want to clean up those edges. You also could just make it smaller than the wood part itself so that it looks like a wood frame around it, which would save you that trouble. Now that we have the edges cleaned up, we are going to grab a few other items that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and we are going to start attaching them to the board. So like I said, I wanted this kind of like a command center between their desks so that they could keep some things on here. And for one, I grabbed this chalkboard that I think I'm going to be putting on the side here as the first part of this. And then we are going to take this acrylic calendar, which I thought would be fun. One of my daughters loves to keep track of all of her daily things that she keeps track of everything herself. She seriously could just, she's very self-sufficient, let's just say that. So she likes to keep track of her notes and her things she needs to do, and I thought this would be perfect for her. But as you can see, this being clear, I didn't think that this would work very well the way that it is. So we are going to do something about that. But for now, we are just going to take all these things apart. This little piece here is so that you can slide it through the back and it could stand up. But we are not going to be needing that because we will be attaching it to the board. So I am just going to put that to the side. Grabbing my self-healing mat, which if you guys do not have one of these, I highly recommend you go get one. These things are great for cutting on to protect your table. And I do all my cutting on here with my X-Acto knife, whether it's vinyl or paper or whatever. It is super handy to have. Now, I originally thought I would grab this white vinyl, which I don't know why. I thought white would be the best color because the writing on the acrylic itself is white. So I am going to put this white vinyl back and grab something a little more colorful. But this vinyl, you guys, this is Oracle 651, and I got it in a 15-foot roll off of Amazon, and I have had this stuff forever. So I will link everything that I'm using down below if I didn't get it at the Dollar Tree so that you can find the things that I'm using here today. But like I said, I'm going to go put this white stuff back and grab a different color. Okay, so here I have a pink vinyl, which this is Tech Wrap vinyl, and it is two-sided, so that means the color on the back is the same color as the front. And if I could peel the backing off with my super tiny little fingernails here, we would be in good shape. But I am just going to be cutting a piece that will go on the back side of this acrylic calendar here, and then we will be attaching it to the board. So I just grabbed my X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut out the piece that I need to go on the back of here, and as you can see, I'm cutting it a little bit bigger than what I needed so that I can just lay it on and then trim off the extra once it's stuck to the acrylic part itself. I didn't want to have to try to line it up with the corners perfectly. So we are going to set that X-Acto knife aside for a minute. And then the way I think we are going to put the vinyl down on the acrylic is by using what's called the wet method. Now, if you are unfamiliar with what that is, this is the best way that I like to attach vinyl, especially to acrylic or glass. So I'm just going to clean off this acrylic piece here. And then what we're going to do is get the back of the acrylic piece here wet with this spray bottle. That is just water and a little bit of soap, like your Dawn dish soap, whatever. And then we are also going to spray the back of the vinyl. And you'll see here in a minute what I mean by that. Now peeling back off the backing, as you can see, like I said, both sides are pink, which is what I wanted for this because I'm sticking it to the back side of the acrylic piece. Now I'm spraying the vinyl with the water soap mixture, and then I am going to spray the back side of the acrylic. Now what this does is it allows for you to remove it if you need to, so you can reposition it. Sometimes when we're laying vinyl down onto things, it can not maybe get in the right position the first time you try, or it gets all sorts of little bubbles, and that can be super annoying. But with the wet method here, you can scrape out all the bubbles and you can peel it off if you have to reposition it. Now, because this is just one solid part on here, I didn't have to worry about the placement of it, but there are some bubbles on the back here. So I am going to work with my scraper and push out all of these little bubbles until I am satisfied with the way that this looks on the back. Then what you're going to do is just make sure you squeegee out all the water that you can because you don't want any water trapped underneath that vinyl. And then we're going to let it sit and dry for a while before we go ahead and trim the edges from the other side. So we do need to clean up our edges before we attach this to our board. But this is just a really great method. I'll link a video up above that goes into more detail about the wet method. It really is my preferred way of doing things. I make a lot of acrylic keychains where the back side is glitter and then the front side I attach vinyl, and sometimes that can get a little tricky. So lining everything up perfectly without bubbles, this is just the way I like to do it. Let me know in the comments below, do you use the wet method? Have you heard of it but really didn't know how to do it? I would just like to know if this is something you use often or not. Now that everything is dry, I am going to trim up my edges just using my X-Acto knife on my self-healing mat here. And we are going to remove the excess pieces. Now, as you can see up here at the top, my vinyl kind of folded up on me a little bit, and I was having a little bit of a hard time getting that off, but I did what I could and got off as much as I possibly could. And at the end of the day, it's for my kids hanging on the wall. So if I was gifting this to someone, I would be a little more upset and would probably try a little bit harder to fix that. But it is what it is. And we are just going to keep moving along here, trimming up these edges. And then we will move on to the next step of what to do on this board. Now going back to the board itself and this chalkboard that I picked up from Dollar Tree, I removed the plastic wrapping on it. And now I'm just going to kind of place around the different things that I wanted to attach to the board. Now, as you can see on that acrylic part, that pink was maybe still not the best option. It is a little bit difficult to see the white writing on there. I maybe would have picked a darker color just so that that white would show up a little bit better. But I think it will work fine for my kids that will be using this. And now after I move these around a little bit to figure out where I would like to place them, I am going to use a combination of hot glue and E6000. Now the E6000 will give it that long-lasting hold that you want so your projects don't fall apart, but the hot glue will give it that very quick hold. So the hot glue will dry a lot faster than the E6000 so that I can keep moving on with the project and not have to sit and let this E6000 dry for a day or however long it takes. But that hot glue will give it that quick hold so we can continue moving on. Now I am going to do the same for the acrylic part. So let's just blast through here so that we can move on. But first, as you can see on this chalkboard, because I do have it hanging off the edges, I needed to make sure that I only glued the corner that was actually going to be on the board. So just a side note on that part. Now we're going to go back and grab that crate from the very beginning that we had painted with some chalk paint, and I am going to do the same that I did to attach the other pieces. I'm going to use some E6000 and then some hot glue as well, and we are just going to stick this down in the middle of the board with it hanging down off the edge. So I only glued on the first the top two lats of the crate. And then I'm going to be pressing this down the best that I can. And like I said, that hot glue will have a quicker hold onto that board so that I can continue working without having to hold it in place for so long. Now I grabbed these little desk organizers as well. They're kind of like this weird material, I don't know. I would assume you'd have to have these in something, some kind of holder, just to have them stand up on your desk. They're pretty flimsy in that respect that I wouldn't probably put too much in these and just set them on my desk. But on here, we are going to hang them off the bottoms of the board so that they can keep their chalk markers and their dry erase markers in here for on the other parts that they'll use them for the board. And here again, we are going to hit it with some E6000 and some hot glue. But then to make sure that these stayed put, I took my stapler and I just put a few staples through the mesh pouch itself down into that board, just to give it a little extra hold. You just never know when you're putting, pens and things in here. My kids can get a little aggressive sometimes and aren't the most gentle, so that is what we are doing there. And then we can go ahead and hang this up on the wall using some 3M, those sticky back things that you can use for like picture frames. We are going to put a bunch of those on here, and this will be a nice addition to their desk area. Moving on, I grabbed a few of these composition notebooks that I thought would be fun to change the covers a little bit, and thought this wallpaper would be perfect to use for that. So we are going to go ahead and pick this wood table texture looking one and cover one of these notebooks. Now grabbing a ruler, we are going to measure from the edge of where that black binding tape is to the end of the notebook cover, and then again the height. And we are going to just cut out this paper so that it's a little bit more than what we need, and you'll see why in a little bit that is important. You do not want to just cut it the same size as the book cover itself. So using my metal ruler and my X-Acto knife, I am just going to cut down a straight line on the edge here. And these cutting mats are really nice because it gives you that grid line that you can line your ruler up to make sure you are actually very straight. So now taking the notebook, we are going to attach this sticky wallpaper to the cover. Now I played around with the placement with this one for a while, but decided those white lines where it separates like the plank look, I am going to be putting in the middle of the notebook. Obviously you can do whatever you want here, depending on what type of paper you're using. Now on the back side, I'm going to fold over the edges here so that it is easier to apply this, so that we don't get any creases and wrinkles. So we will place down the edge of where we pulled that paper backing up from, and then press down the edge that is exposed to the notebook. And then slowly pull that paper lining back away from the wallpaper stickiness itself. As you can kind of see what I'm doing here, I'm also going to be using my scraper tool to help just push out any of those creases. And if you don't have one of these little handy dandy tools, you can always use like your driver's license or a ruler or something with a flat edge, just to kind of push this all down as you pull out that paper. If you were to pull all the paper off first and then try to lay it down, it would be pretty tricky to line it up just right. This wallpaper is actually very sticky, and I don't know how many times you would be able to pull it up and reposition it. So just go ahead and peel back some of the paper before you go ahead and stick this down. Now I'm going to go and squeegee or burnish, as they call it, down that paper, and then I'm going to open up the book and do it from on the inside too. I think this is just habit from working with vinyl so much that you just always burnish down both sides of your project just to make sure you get it adhered very, very well. Now, as you can see, it's overlapping, or not overlapping, but there's extra hanging off the edges here. And that is what we wanted so that we can trim the corners and then fold these over so it's hugging the cover. So you don't have to get precise here unless you really want to. Maybe if you were going to be selling these, you would try to be a little more accurate on your angles and things, but this is going to be for one of my daughters, so I'm not too concerned about the angles of the cuts that I'm doing here. Now, after you're done clipping those little angles, we are going to start at the top of the notebook and crease where it meets the notebook itself. So then we're going to do the same on the bottom, and then we're just going to fold it over and stick it to the inside cover of the notebook. Now we're going to take that scraper tool again and just rub these down really good so they stick the best that they can. And then we are going to take the other side flap here and fold that over as well. This is where, if you were a little more precise with your angles, this would probably work a little bit better, but this is just what I did. And then I'm going to flatten that out as well with my scraper tool, and then we are going to look at what this is from the outside here. Now you could either leave these corners shaped squared off, or you can just cut them to fit the size of the actual notebook, those rounded tips there. So I'm just pressing this against the actual rounded parts here and then trimming it with my X-Acto knife. And then I'm also going to do the same on the other side, just because I like that look a little bit more. You could leave it squared off. I think that looks fine too. But for what we're going to be doing to this next, this is the preferred way that I wanted it. Now that those corners are trimmed to the rounded fit of the actual notebook, we are going to either options here. You could cover the inside of this notebook as well. And if, like I said before, if you're selling these or gifting them, you might want to do that for a more finished off look. But these are just for my kids for homeschooling, so I'm going to leave it the way it is so they can just write their names and stuff on the inside of the cover. And then we are going to breeze through the back side of this notebook like we did on the first one. And following the same steps, I'm just going to kind of fast forward through this because the process is the same. Now, as you can see, I do have a glue stick off to the side here. If you feel like this maybe isn't sticky enough for you and you would like to add more protection to your notebook covers, you could put some glue stick glue down on the cover itself before putting that wallpaper on. But I felt like it was super sticky, so I didn't even bother with that. Now I grabbed one of these wall stickers that I also picked up at the Dollar Tree and cut this down to size. I thought this would be a good addition to the front and back, just to add a little more to that look. And these worked really great. They're super sticky, but I was able to lift them up to reposition them a few times. Now, peeling these trees off that paper backing was a little bit of a trick because of all of the intricate cuts by the tree line, so just work carefully if you use the same ones as I'm using here. They do come off pretty well. It's just kind of a trick. You gotta go slow. So then after I had those on, I just carefully trimmed off the extra and we were done with that. Now I might add some vinyl name to the front of this, maybe in that dark blue color, but I think this turned out really well. You could do all sorts of notebooks with all the different types of wallpaper patterns that they have at the Dollar Tree. So just get creative and let your kids go crazy picking stuff out. Now for this box that we painted at the very beginning. You can paint the inside if you want, but I left it the way it was. And this has completely dried, so I'm going to take this gold and white paper that obviously I grabbed at the Dollar Tree. And there's like this little raised part on the top of this box. So I am lining up the bottom and the one side to the paper here, and then I'm going to crease the other two parts so that I know where to trim this paper, because I didn't want to stick it on and then try to have to cut it. That would be a little bit trickier, so I just went ahead this way and made some good creases on the edges. And then I am going to just cut this out with a pair of scissors, and then we will move on to the next step. How have you guys been liking this quick and easy dress up your homeschool supplies tutorial today? I love doing these kinds of things. It just adds a little extra special touch. If you are getting value out of this, go ahead and subscribe and throw that like button down. Now, as you can see, I am doing the same process as I did with the notebook and peeling back that paper and then burnishing this down really well. You guys, this was such a super simple project, and you could let your kids go to the store and pick out their own boxes, their own paper, and what we're going to be doing on here next. They could just get so creative. You can add as much or as little onto this as you want. And then I'm just grabbing some of these gold wall sticker butterflies that I also grabbed at the Dollar Tree. And you can put on as many or as little as you'd like. Now my daughter sees this sitting on my table in my room and is just dying to have this so she can fill it with all the little things. She's 8 as of yesterday and just has all little things. So this will be a perfect place for her to set all the little miscellaneous objects that she finds throughout the day at her desk. These projects were so super easy and fairly inexpensive. Which ones did you like? Let me know in the comments. Which ones are you going to go out and try and let your kids pick out all the fun things to do this with? If you're looking for more ideas on what to do to deck out your kids' school supplies, whether they go to school or are homeschooled, check out the video that's coming up right now.